Hello everyone and welcome to vlog entry number 5 in Pablo Escobar's video series. So today we're going to be chronicling my first week in Grand Arena Season 25, my first foray into the Aurodium tier, and then we'll look at the account update. So starting with round number 1 of this first week of Season 25, we went up against X. So this round 1 seemed to have an auto-deploy defense, which took me a little bit of time to figure out where exactly I wanted to attack. Auto-deploy defenses are very tricky because they don't really employ any of the standard counters. So in the end I figured if all of his big teams were deployed, all I had to do was just knock out 1 or 2 teams and I should be able to secure a win because he shouldn't really have any attack power left over. Well, that was theory. He was able to get 2 attacks in and score some points, but I think it was against my lower powered teams in the front walls. So I first went up against this mismatched team using my Padme Cat team, and seemed to do pretty well with that. Managed to get a clear 65 banners and used Cat's first force leap to take out the damage immune buffed Jango Fett. In the second instance, I went up against this mismatched team with Grievous as the lead and decided, since Grievous is in the lead, let's try attacking with Jedi Knight Revan and the Jedi team and see how that goes. And this also seemed to go quite well, and we were able to pick up quite a nice easy win here, but I lost a few banners on Jolie. Well, 1 banner just on Jolie. Next, decided to line up the gas and the fiber first and try and see if we could manage to take up this opposing team. Now, this team always struggles with banner recovery, and at some point I'm probably going to have to move them onto defense. And if I do ever do that, I'll probably then have to promote a CLS team up into the attacking place that gas and the fiber first occupied. But I'll think about that a little bit later as I get around to that at some point in the future. The next team that I decided to go with was the Faithful Imperial Troopers, and to see how they go up against this team. But kind of forgot about B1 always getting ticked off with the attacks on allies, and he caused a little bit of irritation, but this was a pretty straightforward team to take out. With his auto deployers not having any real synergy, it wasn't really difficult, it was just a little bit tricky because you had to make sure you didn't overlook some of the more unusual type of compositions and the interactions that they could have. I decided to go in with this Empire team, and while this team has been quite good and been able to lock down and help me out with getting in quite a lot of banners and being able to secure quite a lot of punched up wins, is a bit of weak links in this team. Thrawn, for example, and especially Mara Jade at this low level that she's at, are very prone to just being nuked out by any large hitting AoEs. So that's something I'll have to work on, and something we'll discuss a bit more when we get to the account review at the end of this video. But this team was able to clear out this mismatched team and come away with 62 banners, thankfully. Then we took up the final team on the spot wall with the Sith Triumvirate. Again, not a very challenging task, but just made a bit challenging by the fact that this was again an unusual composition. I mean, if HK wasn't the lead, who knows, maybe we would have had an even harder time. But as was, we were able to still beat this team reasonably comfortably, albeit not securing a lot of banners at all. With that front wall pin and the back wall also knocked down, I decided to let's try and see if we could make some sort of dent into this top team. And this was a very scary battle with this bounty hunter team. Eventually this team's going to have to be geared up a bit more. I think when I'm working on Executor, I'll give bounty hunters their time to start having some improvements. But Aurodium came very close to biting the dust here and just managed to just barely hang in there. Just long enough that I was able to regain health, and with Grief Karga and that, as Arnold called it, the reverse Uno card, we were able to recover quite a lot of protection and come away with 65 banner win from a battle that looked like I was going to lose Aurodium very early on. And that's pretty much where I stopped out and maxed out at 875 banners versus X's 125 banners. In round 2 we came up against Hay, and he managed to make quite a significant dent into my defense. So I started off the round opening up with GAC against the CLS team, and yes, obviously, as I've mentioned before, I am aware that GAC does not help a lot with banner recoveries, but he seems to be the only team I've got that can beat this CLS team with some reasonable amount of consistency. The 5 sacrifice was triggered, dropping my banners down to 68, and maybe there needs to be a better team. I think Darth Revan seems to be a reasonable counter, and maybe that's something I'll work on after I finish with the Sith Eternal Emperor on the way towards getting Jedi Master Luke. Then took Enfys Nest against the Ewoks to see how that would pan out, and got the regular counter off. It was a little bit of a more tedious battle because Wicket seemed to, for some reason, favour hiding the Elder Ewok under stealth, so it was difficult to pick that Ewok off. And the one time I had a clear shot, then managed to dodge it. But eventually we came around, was able to take him out, and cleared up the rest of the Ewoks not too long after that. The next battle was against a Padme team with Yoda, which was the team that I used to run before. And this team is just so frustrating to kill because of all the foresight, and it's just a wreck and nuisance, honestly. And this team actually came very close to just obliterating my Padme team at the end. But we were able to get the 57 banners and move on. We then moved on to the back wall, and taking a look at what they had there, and then going back and looking at the top wall, we thought let's just clear out some easy banners in the top first. Taking Kylo Ren original against the Old Republic team, pretty standard counter, and he made very short work of them. It's still one of the most satisfying counters to play, unless you are playing Conquest and then have to deal with it. It's called Sweeping Strikes, which just deals a berserk amount of damage. But anyway, we were able to clear this team out quite easily and come away with 69 banners. 4 banners for a solo. I looked at the rest of the board and decided, you know what, let's try this Bounty Hunter team against this First Order team. And again, for their relatively lowish level compared to the other teams that I have, this Bounty Hunter team is able to pick up some odd jobs here and there, which I guess is pretty much what Bounty Hunter does anyway. So 65 banners, not too bad. Hopefully once I get them up to around gear 12, maybe gear 13, they might be a bit more consistent and I won't have to rely on a little bit of luck here and there. Then took the Faithful and Imperial Troopers against the Night Sisters, and I think they dropped the ball here, but I think I lost a banner at some point. Yeah, from that Telzen plague, unfortunately. So a little bit disappointing there, and this time the Bounty Hunters won up them, I guess. Then went back to the bot lane before we decided to tackle ships, and first up was the Empire team against this Rebel team. Just seemed thematically fitting, I guess, and they were able to do quite well. Maybe fracturing one mob was not the best idea, but I mean this team was not going to pose much challenge anyway, and came away with 65 banners nicely there. Then the Sith Triumvirate against the Jawas. I don't really know what I was thinking when I decided to do this, but yeah, for some reason this was the team I decided to go with, I guess. But they seem to do very well. Maybe if the Jawas were more highly geared, I might have actually suffered a little bit more with the thermal detonators. Just 3 banners, a few banners there, but nothing too serious. And then took this Jedi Knight Revan team out against the Bounty Hunters. And the whole idea here was to try and keep a lockdown on Boba Fett and on Jango Fett, so that they couldn't nuke my Yoda. Especially the amount of buffs that Yoda keeps stealing and getting passed over to him. He's very susceptible to Boba Fett just obliterating him. So Jango under lockdown, proceeded to take out Zam Vessel and then go in against Jango. And a nice 65 banner win there again as well. Fleets, I think, in this round was a little bit more tricky. So I started out with the finalizer, and at this point I didn't really have a decent finalizer fleet. I think I'd unlocked the TIE Echelon just after I'd locked in for this round, and the Special Forces TIE Special Forces TIE Fighter was, I think it was at 1 star or something, and still needed a lot of work to be done on him. So this was a very half-cocked attempt going in here. But with that in mind, I probably should have just left this finalizer on defense for this first round. After this round had commenced, I was able to complete the Galactic Chase, and unlock the TIE Echelon. So I should be able to get some footage of him in the second round. And I'm slowly trying to work on building up a first order fleet, since all of those pilots are actually relict already. So they might actually prove to be quite a strong, reliable team. Maybe a little more so than the Malevolence and the Separatists. But unfortunately that rebel fleet bested me, so I decided to just change track, go with the Negotiator against the Malevolence. Should be a fairly stand counter, but I have been having trouble with Fleet Arena, mostly finding Negotiators and not being able to really do much damage as on a 6-star Negotiator versus 7 stars. So I don't really have too much experience at the moment playing against these these Malevolence fleets. But fortunately we were able to pull off a win here after a bit of a lengthy engagement. I think a large part of the trick is just trying to time out the heals, etc. with the buzz dropped. However, that rebel fleet proved to still be resilient and stayed behind. So we ended up tying up that round 1282 versus 804 in a successful campaign against A. Round 3 we came up against OB2, who had quite a diverse roster, and again, this round we tried to start off again, GAC versus the CLS team. This was a team though that had the 3-pop variant in it, so I thought let's try taking him out first so we can remove the blinds and the extra quartz to assist, try and decrease the amount of damage output that we have to face up against. And then also take out R2D2, and once Chewie is gone, then we can get rid of the guard and be able to focus down the other 2 heroes on the team. The next battle was up against this Padme team with C-3PO, and this one was even more dicey than the previous one. Yeah, these mirror matches are always iffy, and the foresight from Obi-Wan is just frustrating to deal with. So this would also probably be another team that CLS would be able to make short work of, so I really need to get that CLS team going after I finish my current Sith Eternal Emperor farm. And yeah, this was very, very close. I mean, Cat almost got killed, and jeez, this was way closer than I would have liked. 55 banners, very messy battle. Then brought this Jedi Knight Revan team up against the Jedi Knight Luke team. And this is probably the first time I think I've ever versed a Jedi Knight Luke, so I wasn't really too sure how the battle would pan out. But in hindsight, just looking at it after Yoda was taken out, my thinking was I didn't want to share the buffs from Obi-Wan dying out, so I thought let me try and take out Shakti, but I got stuck a bit behind Obi-Wan's taunt as well, which was a little bit frustrating. But once the mark came around again, I was able to get past that and just go then all in on Obi-Wan at the end. Helmut Yoda's protection recovery has really been helping out a lot to maximize the amount of banners I come away with after these battles, and it's actually been quite fun using this team now. So yeah, a nice 65 banner win there. So I looked at his fleets and thought, you know what, let's just give this a few minutes, we'll come back to it just now. So went down to the bot wall to see what we could pick out there. So started off with Imperial Troopers against this First Order team. Not really a very challenging affair, but there were a few counterattacks that were a little bit annoying to have to deal with. I don't know if maybe throwing out Admiral Piet's Orbital Strike before passing over the Emperor's trap or the inevitable failure rather, to Dark Trooper was the best option, but we managed to work around it, I guess, in any case. And we're able to succeed with 65 banners there as well. So I don't even really put much stock in the idea about taking out his SLKR my focus here was just to try and be as clean as possible and pick up as many banners as I could in the other battles that I had. But I think this battle here really showed just how fragile that low gear Mara Jade is. Don't get me wrong, her utility is absolutely fantastic and I've loved using her, but I did really need to invest a bit more gear into her to improve her survivability, because I mean that was just what 2-3 counterattacks, and especially because as soon as she goes under stealth she's still prone to being picked off with counterattacks. I mean, the Short Trooper is there as the pre-taunt to try and soak up some of those counters, but Short Trooper is also a little bit under-geared at the moment for that. But wins a win, I guess. We were able to clear that in one run, and then had to focus in on the fleets to see if we could get some positive momentum going here. So I decided to try using my Malevolence up against his Negotiator, and this is even more dicey than using my Negotiator up against Malevolence. I've maybe run this Malevolence against Negotiators 2 or 3 times. Whenever I do though, I always feel the need to bring the Imperial TIE Bomber in as a second tank, just to kind of disperse the received fire bit between Sunfac, the TIE Bomber, and the Hyena Bomber. And I think it was Sunfac that just got blitzed out there. So I don't know, eventually I'll have to get around to getting this TIE Bomber up to 7 stars, but at the moment he's not really the top priority. I'm still working on getting the IG-2000 up so that I can try and unlock the Millennium Falcon at 7 star. That's the last bounty hunter ship I have that I have to get up to 7 stars. I mean, there's also technically the Razor Crest, but that involves the whole Desk of Armor, Mandalorian farm as well, I guess, which I'm really not keen for right now. So, yeah, we were able to take out the Negotiator fleet with some difficulty. The Vulture droids, I guess, really helped out here. Thankfully we were able to spawn a few more, and yeah, many hands make light work, I guess. And then took my Negotiator fleet up against this Finalizer fleet, and honestly was a little bit unsure how this was going to run, because there are videos out there of Finalizers being used to counter Negotiator fleets, so I was a little bit reluctant doing this, but I don't really have any other choice at the moment, I guess. But all in all, this seemed to have actually worked out not too badly. We were able to secure a win here and come off with a win of 825 versus 495 banners against OB2, and finishing the first week therefore of Grand Arena with 3 wins out of all 3 rounds. So quite a good start to my foray into the Aurodium tier. So I think this moved us up from Aurodium 3 to Aurodium 2 for the second week of Grand Arena. So we'll see how the next week pans out then. But yeah, this is how the battlefield looked at the end of this. So 3 rounds done and 3 victories from that. So I'm going to cross to the account update. So before we start with the regular review, I just wanted to start out with this little schematic I made. So I was thinking of looking at farming Sith Eternal Emperor, but instead of just farming the random heroes, I wanted to try and structure them into teams. So at the moment I've got my Imperial Trooper team that I'm trying to work on with VZ Relic 3, Pieta 2, and the others are coming along slowly. I'm probably not going to get everyone to Relic level because that would be a huge waste. But the second team, for example, with Palpatine-led team with Palps, Vader, Throne, Mara Jade, and Short Trooper, all needing gear levels. I'll probably get most of these up to gear 12, 1 or 2 to gear 13. Mara Jade, for example, is still at gear 11 for a while. Third team, this batch, would be the Arden Verso team. So far this team's been quite helpful and been able to get 2 defensive holds in this past week for me, so they definitely deserve a bit of gear. It'll only be stock that goes up to relics, the rest will probably be at relic 13 just to add some defensive viability. And so far for the Sith Eternal Emperor farm, I've gotten 4 out of the required prerequisites, 2 of them appearing on this page with stock and Palpatine. So this is the first 3 of 6 teams that I was planning on trying to construct. The second page looks at the Sith Lords. At the moment the only one who's really geared up to any extent is Count Dooku, who's at gear 12. The rest of them still have a ways to go, but I'll get to them after I'm finished investing into the Arden Verso, or the Inferno Squad as I call them. And then finally will be this mishmash Imperial Remnant kind of team under Director Krennic. Everyone here except for Death Trooper and TIE Fighter Pilot required relic levels. Death Trooper I'll probably get to gear 12, and TIE Fighter Pilot I'll have to look at relicking along the way to getting the Executor. And the final 2 add-ons, Jedi Knight Anakin and the Imperial TIE Bomber, have already been unlocked to the prerequisite amounts to help with the Sith Eternal Emperor unlock, and they are the remaining 2 of the 4 requirements that I've completed so far. So my plan was to have this little schematic and kind of update it as I go along, but also just to have some sort of focus. So instead of having just a Sith Eternal and a few random requirements, I can kind of try and put together about at least 5 decent teams. Generally, Anakin already belongs in a very solid team with the Padme Cat lineup, so I would like to try and create something a bit more useful from the rest of them as well. So if we look at the account update for this past week, that 150k jump is probably a little bit overstated. I was on holiday for a period of time, so I probably missed exactly where that cutoff was, where the video should have been made. But in any case, basically the account GP has grown a little bit. Of note in this account growth is my relic farms. So I was actually able to push Vader through to relic tier before I was able to get Pierre to cross the gear 13 mark. So Vader is currently sitting at gear relic tier 5 and has a bit of way to go to relic 7. Some of the container energy is being used for the relic requirements, but the relic requirements needed for things like the bronzium wiring and the electric conductors, the carbonite circuit boards, etc. I'm running a little bit low on, so it's going to take a bit of time to try and farm them up. Piet has gone across from gear 12 to relic 2 and still has a few more relics to get to. I'm probably only going to look at relic 9 and actually look at focusing on the executor, but for now he'll set up the Sith Eternal Emperor requirements. My current gear 13 farm for now is going to be Moff Gideon, who's currently at gear 12 with about 3 pieces added on. My gear 12 farm remains Dark Trooper, who has gone up from gear 9 to gear 11 and has about 1 piece attached at the moment. Energy farms are still on Dark Trooper, who's been expedited by the login board. I have now moved Cara Dune into the farming schedule as my IG-11 remains, and the 2 ships haven't changed at all. My Zeta for the week went to Darth Vader with the no escape to be able to pull those pesky spies out of stealth and anyone else is hiding from the merciless massacre. And the Omicron was awarded to Iden Versa. So we'll see in the upcoming Grand Arenas how much of a difference that has in impacting the defensive viability of this team. So far they've actually been able to get me 2 defensive wins with their relatively low gears, as you've seen in the previous updates for the Sith Eternal Emperor plan. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing how well they're able to hold out against much stronger teams in the future. In addition to the account update that I usually have, I also just wanted to include a little detail of how I'm planning on using some of my currencies, a shopping list as it is, if you will. So for my guild store currency, I want to use this on trying to focus solely on getting the First Order Special Forces TIE fighter up and running. In the past I've normally used this currency for trying to buy a few extra pieces of like Carbantes or the stun cups, etc. But for now I just want to get this ship up to 7 stars as fast as possible to build up that final squad quite nicely. Squad arena currency is being used for the relic conversion materials. That's that batch right at the bottom. Whatever I can spare, if I can get it up to 100, I'm happy with that. Get 1 I'm saving for Malik and a little bit extra for clutch buys as I need to, and the negotiator is my get 2 purchases. So that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching this 5th vlog entry. If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments or feedback. Thanks so much, and cheers.